With all the media heat over the border, are we seeing a complete and true picture of the situation?
If I say something like, remember that migrants are humans too, well, all of a sudden everyone on the right calls me a commie, And if I say something like, well, we need to build a barrier and we need to go after Mexican cartels and better secure our border, well, everyone on the left calls me a Nazi,
The border crisis has been going on for decades. What's the real reason behind it? I asked him another question. Now with the Democrats taking the majority of the House, the chances of getting anything fixed in Congress, fix the catch and release law, and he said the chances are zero.
He's probably right.
I interviewed Tom Tancredo, and I asked him what percentage of the Republican congressmen are opposing or not wholeheartedly supporting the building of the border fences, and he said 75%. That was shocking to me.
Probably about right.
Why do you think that many Republicans are not supporting this wholeheartedly?
I think that most people in the Republican Party don't agree with it. I think that a lot of their funders, like especially in Texas, are construction builders who have business models that are based on the exploitation of foreign labor.
He's the director of the Breitbart Border and Cartel Chronicle projects. And yet what he told me about the border is not something I expected from this media outlet. Brandon Darby, a former FBI agent and a true expert on Mexican cartels, who has spent a decade cruising along all 9 sectors of the U.S. Mexican border, expressed, among other things, frustration with our immigration system. The inconvenient truth he has to tell may be precisely what we need to hear. I'm Simone Gao, and you are watching Zooming In.
President Trump recently slapped 5% of tariffs on all Mexican goods exported to the U.S. What do you think of that?
I have mixed feelings on it, mixed thoughts about it. I'm a Texan, and Texas has a lot of our economy is based on trade with Mexico. At the same time, I think that it's a mistake that we've engaged in for a long time as a nation to treat Mexico as though. And I say that to treat the Mexican government as though they're equals at a table with us, as though they're Canada or Western European nations. They're not. They're a failing narco state. They're a state where the majority of their previous recent governors are directly tied into narco cartels. Several are indicted in U.S. courts. Several are wanted by other nations in the world for this behavior. Their past president was connected to narco cartels. That's irrefutable. The current president possibly is. He was implicated in the trial of El Chapo Guzman as taking money from them. And so treating those diplomats and politicians as though they're allies or friends, no, they're not. They're people who are actively playing a role in millions of Americans dying of overdoses. I think getting tough with them is probably appropriate. I think getting tough with them when it comes to mass migration is appropriate. And I think getting tough with them when it comes to handing over drug dealers is appropriate. We had a DEA agent named Kiki Camarena who was murdered. And the people responsible for that got released from prison accidentally. Oops. Come on. Somebody paid somebody, and they let somebody like that out, and they can't find them. This kind of behavior, they're a failing narco state, and I think that being nice and giving them billions of dollars a year has not gotten us anywhere. And I think maybe putting a little pressure on them is probably appropriate.
Do you think this will actually help stop the Mexican cartels?
Do I think it will actually help stop them? Directly, no. I don't think directly it's going to help stop Mexican cartels. Do I think indirectly, over time, what this attitude is symbolic of and representative of? Do I think that if the U.S. State Department quit putting diplomatic relationships with Mexico diplomatic priorities above law enforcement concerns? Do I think that we would have more success going after cartels? Yeah. Do I think the State Department's going to do that without a U.S. president pressuring them to be tougher? No. Do I think that this indicates to them that the U.S. president wants them to be tougher? Yeah, I do. So, you know, one of the problems we have in probably global media, but definitely U.S. media, which is what I pay attention to primarily, is we look at things in the most simplistic way. You know, we have really everyone in media, for the most part, everyone has an agenda, and everyone is actually a team player playing some part on one team or another, you know, politically. So all of the people who don't like Trump are going to say, oh, this is it. They're going to look at it in this way and that, find every way they can to pick it apart, and they're going to be celebrated for it. And then everyone on the right is going to find every way to support Trump, and they're going to be celebrated for it amongst their peer group, you know. And we're going to not have had an honest conversation. But trying to just be honest here as someone who's just been very critical of Trump, you know. I'm critical of him when I think he's doing good, or when I think he's messing up, and not so much when I think he is doing good, right? Don't really have a dog in that fight, let me put it that way. I think that probably in the long term, getting a different attitude with them and holding them accountable is probably a fair thing to do. You know, a lot of times I think with Mexico, I think Americans, and especially American politicians and American folks in media and the pundit class, they're actually bigoted, and they don't realize it. It's a soft form of bigotry. And to them, they'll be like, yeah, Mexico does this, but they're poor, but they're this, but they're that. And it's like, no. I believe that people in Mexico and Mexico's politicians are just as much, they're just as competent to be human beings as I am. They're just as competent. They have just as much agency as I do, you know, and as we do. And that means that they should be held just as much responsible for their own behavior as we should be held for our behavior. They should be liable for what they're doing wrong, just like we should be liable for what we're doing wrong. That's because we are equal human beings. They're equal to us in every way, as far as their being human beings goes, you know? So anything that says like they should be treated somehow differently because they're Mexico and not America, to me, I think that's a soft form of bigotry. It's actually probably unintentionally saying that you think they are less than us, have less agency, and therefore shouldn't have the same consequences that we do. You know, when our nation engages in behaviors that impacts other nations, we pay a price for it, and they should too. And right now what they're doing is they're allowing hundreds of thousands of people to come through their southern border. They're giving them visas to cross their country, right? And they're encouraging people to go through the arms of transnational criminal groups on the border, Mexican cartels who oftentimes pay those candidates' campaigns. And that's what they're doing. And if they're going to engage in that kind of behavior, they should be held accountable for it. If we're going to incur the cost of this, whether you think we should or shouldn't, or whether you think we should allow everyone here or not allow everyone, that's not the point. The point is it costs us money. It costs us resources, it costs us opportunities, and they should pay for that, you know? I think that's perfectly fitting.
Okay, talking about that, you know, Tom Tancredo, I asked him another question. Now with the Democrats taking the majority of the House, what are the chances of getting anything fixed? I mean, the catch and release law. And he said the chances are 0.
He's probably right. Okay, so here's how to put this. I like Tom Tancredo. I'm a huge Tom Tancredo fan. I don't so much agree with him on a lot of policy, you know? He comes across to me as being very much more restrictive on immigration than I would be, you know? I think he focuses very heavily on angel families and on the groups who come here illegally who are hardened criminals. I focus on them too, but I also focus on the majority who are women and children, and I know why they're coming. I get it, you know? I'm not mad at them. I try to have a message where I look at the angel families and I try to be a voice for them and tell their story, but at the same time I try to tell everyone's story involved, you know? And I feel like Tom is he's probably much more of an immigration restrictionist than I would ever be, you know? But as a person, I really like Tom a lot, you know. Just probably not so much that we would agree on immigration, you know.
But you agree with him on this point?
On these points, I agree with him very much. He's absolutely right. When you know, most Republicans have a message that sounds like Tom Tancredo, but then they go and vote in ways and use their energies and their power in ways that sound like Barack Obama. You know, Tom Tancredo, as much as I don't always agree with him, he did just what he says. You know, and he's absolutely right when he says that this Congress isn't going to change. No, I didn't hear the full breadth of his comments, but I'll tell you, it isn't just this Congress though. That's the House controlled by Democrats, right? Who didn't change asylum laws. Let me remind you that for the last 2 years, what did we have? We had a Republican in the White House, a Republican-controlled Senate, and a Republican-controlled House. Did they change those laws when they had power? No. Okay. But yet, for some reason, 90% of them are jumping on the Democrat House for not changing the laws when they just had control for 2 years and they didn't do it. You know, I can't say they didn't know. I know for a fact they knew because I told them. A lot of them tweet out my stories, you know. Can't say they didn't know. And so it's kind of like DACA with Democrats, right? The Democrats don't change it, you know. The Republicans don't change other things, and it's because it's wedge issues. And they know that they can beat the other side on the head with it, you know. They know they can beat the others upon the head. You know, the Democrats had enough control during 2009 and 10, you know. They had enough power to, well, they controlled the branches. They had enough power to get through ACA, Obamacare, right? They could have addressed immigration, did they? No. They didn't address immigration. They waited till the Republicans took control, and they're like, oh, you don't address immigration. You don't care about immigrants. And then the Republicans wait till the Democrats have control, and they just had 2 years of full control and near full control. And they wait till the Democrats take over, like, you don't care about angel families, you don't care about victims of illegal alien crime, you're not changing our laws. I was like, they didn't change the laws either. And that's what I'm getting back to. They're a bunch of narcissists. There's something wrong. You know, like money gospel preachers who are perfectly happy to manipulate the vast majority of people, you know, and whip them up and get them upset so they can raise money from them and then get them out to vote and support them, you know? But really, neither side is changing anything when they have the power to.
Why do you think so many Republicans are not supporting this wholeheartedly?
Well, when you say we're supporting this wholeheartedly, you mean, what is this? Because we can't even agree on what this is, right? Like, some of us, you know, like, to my discouragement, they want to stop.
Catch and release law.
But, well, catch and release, okay. I think that most people in the Republican Party don't agree with it. I think that a lot of their funders, like especially in Texas, are construction builders who have business models that are based on the exploitation of foreign labor. And the last thing they want to do is not have exploitable foreign labor, you know? Like, yeah, like, pretty clear. I mean, what other reason could there be, you know? That's where the money comes from. So if all the people you get, if the Kochs are in favor of it because they want cheap foreign labor, and most of the state level major Republican donors are in favor of it because they want cheap labor, like, what do? You know? Like, what do? Is, well, you say what you have to say to get voted into office, but then you do what you have to do to make sure the rich people giving you money are happy. That's what they're doing. Here we are, blaming it on Democrats when it's, tell you what, it's not just the Democrats at fault, you know. Tom's right on that point.
So it seems to me that you don't have much confidence in bureaucrats and people on the top. But what do you think of President Donald Trump? Do you think he is sincere about, you know, trying to secure the border and really fixing the problem?
Do I think he's sincere? He sounds very sincere. You know, he sounds very sincere. Has he done it? Has he secured the border? Has he built wall?
It hasn't been done, but
Okay, how long has he been in office?
but the question is whether he has the power to really do that.
Did he get elected saying he was going to do it? Did he say he had the power to do it? See, this is this kind of thing. I have to hire contractors quite a bit. I don't have much time nowadays, right? And when I hire a contractor, if I'm like, man, this one contractor was building me a fence and then he didn't build it straight. And they're like, I can build it straight. I'm like, well, how much? Like materials and costs, $6,000. I'll build it straight. I'm like, so if I let this guy go and I hire you, you're going to build me a straight fence. It's like, yes, I can. And then I hire him to build the fence and he doesn't show up to build the fence. He goes, well, it's complicated. The weather's been bad. I mean, I can't find worker. I'm like, you told me you could do it and that you would do it. And I paid you to do it. I hired you to do this. You told me you would. He's like, well, yeah, but there's this fact. I'm like, so basically you lied. Yeah, but it's not my fault. You didn't tell me you were going to try to do it and that you would do it as long as these things happen. You told me you were going to do it and you didn't do it. So you lied because you told me you were going to do it. Right? Okay. Same thing to him. He said he was going to do it. He knew that there were all these other factors, but he didn't say, I'm going to try to do it and try to get these groups to do this and that. He said, I'm going to do it, and he didn't do it yet. So when you ask me, do I think he's sincere? I don't know. I don't know. I hope he's sincere. I like what he's doing on China policy. I like what he's trying to do. I like his messaging. I like the fact that he's getting some people on the right to realize that there are some balances to the free market, that pure free markets, laissez-faire isn't great, and that we need to look out for our own people. I appreciate that. You know, but when it comes to what he's doing on the border, I'm not impressed. It's not an opinion. It's like, did he do what he was going to say? And don't go, well, he tried. Nah. Did he do what he said? Yeah. No. He did not. Did he present himself as having the ability to get it done? Mm-hmm. Yes, he did. Did he do it? No. There you go. That's it. It's that simple. Okay. It's that simple. That's like, he told us he could. You know, it's that simple. So get it done.
Okay. Could it be like he didn't tell you the truth about whether he had ability to really do this, but his sincerity hasn't changed? He really wanted to do this.
I think he wants to do it. I think he misrepresented his ability to get it done. And I hope that he, you know, a lot of this is when it comes to securing the border and going to war with cartels. He hasn't made one single change in Mexico when it comes to our State Department. This isn't about a wall, okay? This isn't about a barrier, because really we're talking about a wall, we're talking about a fence, right? A barrier. We'll say a barrier, we'll compromise, okay? Barriers in this circumstance are one small part, a very vital part, but they're one component in a very comprehensive, a multi-tiered approach that's necessary, okay? They're one component. There's all these other components that he's not done, things he could do. So when we talk about, well, he'd been prevented by Democrats from building the barrier and judges, I'm like, okay. Did he fire anybody in Mexico and put in any hots in there to go after cartels in the U.S. State Department, who controls what U.S. agencies can do in Mexico? Did he do that? No. He could. He could do it without any problem. He doesn't need anybody's approval. Okay, what did he do? Did he direct our intelligence agencies to better go after transnational criminal groups based in Mexico? No, he hasn't. I know he hasn't. You know? Did he increase the number of drone flights on the border? Did he put up camera systems? Did he increase the number of FBI agents and HSI agents and IRS agents and DEA agents in the offices that are along the U.S. Mexico border? He could do that without any problem. He doesn't need anybody's help. Did he do that? No. Did he increase the number of U.S. Attorney's Office resources working on the border so they can prosecute more crimes and investigate? No. So when you ask me if someone's sincere, okay, so in the things that someone else can control, he hasn't done, right? Okay. But what about the things that he alone controls? Did he do them? No.
Does he understand those are critical things?
Like if he reads my work, he does. But again, like if you look at the people who are in there, the people who become czars, the people who become the top, the problem I have is I don't want to go to D.C. I don't want to be in D.C. I don't want to be in the White House. I want to be on the border. I want to be here and I want to be on the border. I want to go meet with Border Patrol agents and ask them what's happening. I want to go into Mexico and meet with law enforcement agents and go, what can we do to support you? You're a good person. You've introduced me to 2 or 3 other good cops. You work in an agency where the majority are working for the cartel, but you guys are good. How can I support you? I want to be that guy because nobody else wants to be that guy. Everybody wants to be the guy in D.C. And the vast majority of the people in D.C. being that guy, they don't even know what they're talking about. They say half of them call me and go, hey, what's going on with this? And I'm like, why? They're like, I'm about to go in a meeting with the president. I'm like, you don't even know. They're like, no, Customs and Border Police. And I'm like, that's Customs and Border Protection. That's the name of the agency, bro. How is it that you're the one advising the president and you don't even know the names of the agencies, man? It's because the people who are doing that are not the people on the road, on the street, getting their shoes dirty. That's the problem. So but that, again, any good leader should know that. They should go, wait a minute, the people everyone around me is telling me to use are people like the ones that, like everyone around me. I need to go out on the street and find the person, right? When I go to a neighborhood and I want to help there, I don't go into like a marginalized community and find the guy who's in the news the most as their spokesperson. I don't do that. I walk, I go, I look for people who are homeless, who are addicted to drugs, maybe sex workers, and I go, hey. I'm like, what you want? I'm like, no, I don't want that. Like, who helps you here? They're like, oh, well, there's this agent. I'm like, no. Who helps you? You know, like who really, like if you got injured, who do you know you could go to 24/7? Like, oh, this pastor over here. I'm like, not that pastor, because that pastor's in the news and he's the voice of your community. They're like, no, they're never there. Like this guy. I'm like, okay, this pastor. And then I go talk to that pastor and I go, hey, what needs to happen here? What's going on here? To the poor pastor who's not in the Democrat Party circles, who's not in getting all the money from the nonprofits, just the person out there trying to do good. That's how I find who I want to work with, right? Any good leader knows that. Any good organizer knows that. You can go the official route, right? If you're just trying to raise money, then you just do the comfortable thing. But if you really want to make change as an organizer, what do? You go on the street and you figure it out. You find out who the real people there are doing the work, and you work with them, you know? That's not what happens in Washington, D.C. That's not what happens. Like everyone in there advising him, almost everyone, are people who are in these circles, these elite circles. Everybody's like, oh, my friend so-and-so wants to be the border guy. Cuccinelli wants to be the, you know, what does he know? You know what I mean? What does he know? Like, what does he know? Like, so it's just like, what are you doing here? What is this? It's a joke. None of the things that need to be done to actually go after cartels, none of it's happening. People say, well, he said the border, the wall. No, man. When you get cancer and you go, I need chemotherapy, okay? The goal isn't to get chemotherapy, right? You might need chemotherapy and you want to get chemotherapy because you need it, but the chemotherapy isn't the problem. There's a reason you need chemotherapy. There's cancer, okay? The wall and needing that treatment for this problem is not the end goal, okay? The wall is a treatment for a problem we're having. And that problem is Mexican cartels, okay? That's the problem. So the things necessary to actually do something about this are not happening. They're not happening. I know they're not happening. They're not happening. Get it? Get it? The wall is not the end goal. It's just one little treatment for an underlying problem.
So
you know?
You think the president should focus his...
No, he has to focus on it because he organized around it. It is a needed part of it. He should talk about it. He should focus on it. But there's a lot of other stuff that he has the power to do that he's not doing. So when you say to me, are people sincere? And this isn't about Trump. Like I said, there's a lot about Trump I like. I voted for him. I'm going to vote for him again, you know? Like almost assuredly I'm going to. It's not about him. It's about the system. It's about, and he's part of that system, right? He is very much part of that. It's about the Republican Party saying they're doing something, and they're not. They're not. They're not doing enough, okay? So the wall, like, okay, whether he builds it or not, whatever. There's all these other things he could do that he's not doing. He's not doing them. What has he done in the State Department? Nothing. You know? How has he changed the Merida Initiative and the INL based on U.S. He hasn't. You know? How many more FBI, DEA, and Homeland Security investigation agents are there in border offices? There's not. You know? Come on, man. When you ask me if somebody's sincere, like I don't see any indicator that anyone in DC is being sincere right now. Anyone. Do I think like my congressman here, my House rep, Jody Arrington, is being sincere to farmers? He went in there and did just what he said he was going to do. He helped those farmers, you know? Do I think that Representative Chip Roy, another guy from Texas, from Central Texas, he's in there presenting bills to get certain factions of certain cartels declared as foreign terror organizations and go after them? He's doing what he said, right? He's calling out the State Department. He's calling out our treatment of Mexico. He's doing something, you know? But the person with the most power, and people say, don't you think he's sincere and he would secure the border if he could? No, he's not. What's he doing?
Well, if he's surrounded by incompetent people or...
Who chooses who surrounds him?
Well, people like you wouldn't go to D.C.
Who chooses? I wasn't asked to go to D.C. You know?
If you were asked to go to D.C., would you go?
I would tell them no, because then I'd be just like everyone else. I'd say, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. We're going to have a phone call every day. And once every 2 weeks, I'll fly there and meet with you. Wherever you are, and meet you. And we'll talk. But mainly we're going to do it on FaceTime or the phone. And I'm going to spend most of my time on the border. Okay. And in Mexico. That's what I would do. Yeah. That's what I would do. And that's how I would handle it. And that's how it should be handled, you know? This notion that, I mean, it's like toxic waste, you know? It's like you don't put all the toxic waste in one spot on the whole planet and then wonder why the area is toxic, right? You got to dilute that stuff, man. You know, they should have like one government agency in Nebraska and one they should just spread that out and just let that city air out, man. And it's not just about DC, it's about power. Historically, that is what power attracts, you know? It attracts people who maybe aren't the best ones to be in that position. You know, whether we're talking about in an agency. So I'm telling you what, in my history, I've worked with a lot of good men and women in the FBI, and this crap that we see the leadership doing, they would never do stuff like that. You know, I'm talking about these guys are pros, man. They care. They would be texting each other, ruining investigations, trying to spy, and they wouldn't do that. You know, they wouldn't do that. But at the top they did. How is that possible? How can there be such a discrepancy between the apparent character of people at the top and people at the bottom on the street, you know? That's because that's just the nature of who is attracted to power, you know? So if you're going to get in there and you're going to say you're going to change things, you're going to say you're going to fight cartels and secure the border, I'll tell you what, man, it's a lot bigger than building a wall, you know, which he hasn't been able to do. And there's a lot more he could do, like I said.